Well, hello to you all and welcome to this very exciting and special session for our Bendigo Cares Project with Goldfields Library Corporation. And today we've got a special conversation with Uncle Alan Parsons, who is a highly respected nomadic elder, artist, activist and storyteller. I don't know if he'd agree with those descriptors, and I'm going to hand right over to Uncle Alan now to tell us a bit more about himself and his culture. Thanks, Uncle.
Thank you, Lucy, and hello to everyone who's listening in. All the things Lucy said, maybe a bit more too, but let's not get too complicated. It's really beautiful to be able to have conversation around how we're all connected in this way. It's kind of like, first of all, my mob is Bidjira from Carnarvon Gorge, Central Queensland. And I was like of stolen generation, so I did not even know of my family until I got to my 30s. And then I was told, and then I made this journey of connection to see if I could find my mob. And then that was successful, and then that journey then opened up a whole different way of understanding who I was, my connections, and so on. So it's really beautiful to be able to draw on that cultural layer, which has become integral to who I am. And so our conversation is about disabilities, and quite frankly, that's a word that I don't like using at all. So it's nice to be able to look at words, what they're meaning, how they fit into the modern society of understanding. And so when you go back through time, you'll see that culturally, Indigenous people of this land did not even have a word that said disability or disabled. They just saw people with certain issues. They say, oh, Uncle can't hear too good, or Auntie can't get around so good. So that what they then did was didn't labelise people, they honoured them and sort of said, well, that person is who they are, and we're going to honour them in that way without putting a label on them.
I love that.
So the word that I like to use is different abilities.
Yeah, perfect.
So when you start using that terminology, you're honouring a person, you're seeing that they actually have abilities within them. And it's our role, or what we are able to then do, is encourage those people to explore their abilities.
Exactly.
And to see how those abilities can be incorporated into the community, into their home life, into society, and for people to have a valid contribution without the stigma of disability. So that's something that I feel is important to start this conversation around.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you. And Uncle, you had a sometimes painful and difficult start in life. You spent a lot of time in hospital, but you also had a very loving foster family who helped you develop this worldview. Am I right?
You're absolutely correct in saying that. So the first 14 years of my life, you can say, had to be spent inside an institutional medical facilities, because I was born with a condition known as osteogenesis imperfecta. And so the layman's word is brittle bones. So there were a lot of fractures, a lot of medical things that need to be done, but always in the background were the people who, in the medical thing, there were these people who looked after you, cared for you, and did all they could to try to make it as comfortable as you possibly could through that whole journey, of fractures, surgery, and so on. And my foster father and the woman he was living with when they got me, they would always visit from time to time on my birthdays, Christmas, whenever.
Yeah.
So these people were always there and showed just how much, even though we were not able to be together for, a majority of time, when they turned up, the love, the give you a go, mate, kind of attitude really was very strong.
Yeah, and what a powerful legacy that has left, and I'm sure also just your character as well, and your culture and how that lives through you. But the man I know of Uncle Alan as an adult is somebody who's incredibly full of life and resilience and love and giving back to others, and that's why we called this session joining the dots, which was your phrase that you like to use to describe your life, and a life, we've called it a life well lived with different abilities, and it has indeed been a life well lived. Can you tell us a bit more about that?
Sure, and so it's kind of one of those aspects of that when each and every one of us gives to a certain phase of our life, oftentimes there are things that happen like influences or something triggers a shift of direction almost into a way of, oh my goodness, I wonder where this is going to lead to kind of feeling. And if we've given enough support to be able to be confident about exploring that pathway, that what is possible is often that you would never consider even thinking about, let alone doing. And one of the things I would like to quickly leave as an example away from myself, but it means very much, very powerful. There was a person who I know was born with some really high like Asperger's and very shy, not outgoing at all. And then what happened was his mother encouraged him to do art, and he developed an alter ego. And the alter ego, was Laserbeak Man. and so Laserbeak Man was able to do all the things that this person was unable to do in real life. And so Laserbeak Man was able to do all kinds of things, and he developed it and developed it and developed it. And then they did drawings of their books and everything, and then it was really beautiful. That 1 year to celebrate the Action Week, focusing on people with different abilities, they did a projection of Laserbeak Man onto a major land building.
Wow.
In Brisbane, on across the river onto a bridge, and there was Laserbeak Man in all his glory, projected onto these landscapes, the buildings, the bridges, everything. And so that was something that when you think about how this person was unable to express themselves in real life, was able to develop this alter ego that was then projected into the entire community in this in-your-face kind of way. And so what I shared that with you was the fact that there's many of us who sometimes you don't realise just how powerful you can actually be and what you can explore with your potentiality, and just have the support in the background to explore that, project that, and actually go for it.
I love that. And can you tell us a bit more about some of the ways in which you've gone for it? Because you started that story by saying sometimes you can do things you never imagined you might be able to do, and if you could just describe for listeners the realities that you deal with on a daily basis, and how you work your way around them to achieve extraordinary things. You've travelled internationally, independently, and you, as I said at the intro, you're a bit of a nomad. You travel all over Australia in your in your van, in your truck. And could you tell us a bit more about the life that you live and some of the ways that you work around some of the limitations of your body?
Are they limitations?
Well, there you go. I've done it again, haven't I? Sorry.
No, and see, that's really a good thing to consider.
Yeah.
Is that I have a mantra that says, let your challenges become opportunities.
Yeah.
See, so if you see it as a negative, as something that is a limitation, then you're falling into a bit of a black hole.
Yeah.
Whereas if you see things as opportunities, then you can explore, you can seek out different ways of doing things that you can adapt and do that works for you.
Yeah.
For example, I am of short stature, and so to be able to reach the pedals on my truck or my vehicle to drive it, I had to build some extended pedals, and so I can then function and drive like anyone can. It's no different, and so it's really an opportunity then to see something and go, oh, I wonder how I can adapt that, or I wonder how I can modify that, or I wonder if there's another way of doing that, or whatever it might be, and then exploring that, Yeah. And so it's really something that each and every individual can really begin to feel confident about having a go at. And so absolutely, you say bit of a nomad, but I'd leave the bit aspect off and say a nomad,
Yeah.
So when I found my mob, it was really interesting and important to then go walk about.
Yeah.
You really see a lot more of cultural layers and aspects. So I went to Cape York and hung out with some non-urban Indigenous people, and then I went to the centre of Australia and I went to Alice Springs and all that area, and that was a real eye-opener because it's they don't speak English, these fellas, they speak language. And so forth and so on. And so there was quite a long journey of exploring and searching and looking for and eventually finding cultural layers that resonated. And so now I feel integral or so connected to cultural things. But it's really interesting that early in the journey, I wanted to do this more and more and more. And then I discovered within myself, maybe not quite ready because it's very complex. So I backed out of it and got involved with the different abilities sector.
Yeah, great.
And so there was this minister who was given a portfolio to have a look at how that functions. And so I became part of a reference committee group to be able to assist with policy, with all kinds of things, and got involved with different organisations and learned a lot more about the different layers within the community of people who are wanting to navigate through and explore their potentiality. And I actually met Razorbeak Man author Tim Sharp.
Oh, very cool.
And so it was kind of like, wow, and so on and so on. And so that was a journey of about 8 years. And so we made policy, we made law, sitting in a room with retired judges and being asked to formulate policy was just extraordinary, because you see, this is the whole point, is that when you live your life in the way that you live your life, you know what you're talking about. And so you can then project that and say, hang on a minute, it's not quite like this. Or I've made these adjustments, or I've been involved with this, or there's this other person I know that did this and did that. And then you're sharing that with so many others, and then they can rejig their thinking and their way of perceiving things to be more inclusive.
Exactly. And I think that's why I'm so passionate about story catching, and why I was so keen to invite you to share your story with our library and our broader community, because it does sometimes take hearing people's stories to walk, you know, they say the standard phrase, walk a mile in my shoes before you think that you could begin to understand my reality. So it's great that you've had a voice at that really high level. And what I also love about your work is that you find ways to show leadership and inspire others, and you probably wouldn't use either of those two words to describe yourself, but I would. But in recent years, you've been working with kindergarten children and helping them understand connection to country, and you know, it's such a powerful, on so many levels, the message that you would be bringing to those children. You're possibly not much taller than some of them, I don't know.
Well, thank you, Lucy. I really appreciate that. Yep. Yep. No, seriously, what you say is pretty accurate.
Yeah.
And it's really cool to go into a space where children, you know, around the age of 4, I mean, this is preschool, and they're intrigued, and they're like, wow, you know, here's an adult, you know, not that much taller than me.
Yeah.
And so it's kind of really, really, I mean, you're on their level straight away, you know, physically speaking. Anyway, it was really, really, really amazing to be given that opportunity to be able to engage with these, what I call uncontaminated, unpolluted souls.
Yeah.
You know, of children of 4-year-olds, and the thing is, they don't know what the rules are.
Yeah.
So they can ask questions, and they throw questions at you that you kind of go, oh my goodness, you know. But if you've got your wits about you, and if you are engaged in that way, there are ways of answering those questions so that their curiosity is enhanced and it's answered, and they have a broader picture of people who may be a little bit different. And so this is the way I began my journey with these children, is talking about how we are different. And some people, I said to them, you know, some people are fat, and some people are skinny, and some people got hair on their face, and so on. And I looked at myself and said, and some people have got little legs. And the children are going, Anyway, then I said, but you know, there's one thing that everybody has that's the same. And they're very quiet and trying to process that. And I said, you know, what we all have is the same as feelings. And so it's really important to be kind to people and to not say things that are going to make people upset, unhappy and sad. And the feelings that we can have can be happiness, you know, and we can make people laugh, and we can have good times, and we can have fun and games. But it's really important to see that we can all be different, but enjoy life together. Yeah.
What a powerful message for that age group. Yeah.
And it happens for me too. I mean, they're feeding me with their beautiful energy, you know. So it's kind of like a two-way thing. It's an energy exchange that is really, really a beautiful thing.
Of course. Oh, how beautiful. Okay, here's a really big question for you. What's your proudest achievement?
Proudest achievement? Well, you've already touched on the fact that, you know, I'm able to do many, many, many things. And I suppose when I was really young, the medical condition was very, very profound, and there was like lots of fractures, between 350 maybe fractures, and surgery and all kinds of things. So according to the textbooks, the medical textbooks, I wasn't supposed to live beyond 30.
Wow.
So I'm now almost 68. So that would have to be my proudest achievement, is to prove all the medical people wrong.
I love it. Wow. And I got to meet you. I wouldn't have met you if it had been different. Oh, goodness. Well, what I'd love to, I don't know how to frame this question. I was going to ask you what the secret is, but I think you've been telling it to us all the way through, which is mindset, isn't it?
Yeah, well, the secret is not really a secret. It's about everyone exploring and having a go at whatever they feel they would like to have a go at, you know, and don't allow society or other people's opinions to put you in a box, you know, and the labelisms that are, you know, put a label on a person. And then you start to categorize and you medicalize and you do all those ISE paradigms, you know. And so take all the labels off and you can be who you are. You know, and that can be a bit of a shock for other people, you know, because all of a sudden there's someone doing something that they're not supposed to be able to do. Hello. And that becomes a very powerful thing, because then it can, you then become a mirror for other people to see ways in which they can adjust their thinking, and they can adjust how they perceive people who are different, and then it becomes an enhancing thing for them to be able to move beyond what they've been almost, you can say, trapped in, this mindset. And so that can be what I like to call a liberating experience, that we all share community together. We become part of the community. We can be integrated within the community. And, you know, I just wanted to briefly touch on the fact that every time I go to Castlemaine, you know, I get lassoed by Lucy Mays, you know, figuratively speaking. And there's always something going on, and it's like, oh, Uncle, are we doing this and we're doing that? Would you like to say a few words? And that few words is like half an hour or something. Anyway, it's really interesting that when you go through some communities, it's difficult to navigate around through steps and through ancient designs and everything else. So, for instance, in Castlemaine, there's a big building that's become like the tourist centre. There is a ramp out the back, but there's no signage telling you that there's a ramp out the back. And then if you wanted to volunteer for that, the desk is like 5 foot high, you know, and so I wouldn't know what's the average to start with, and anyone who maybe have a mobility issue and using a wheelchair or power chair, would they feel comfortable with volunteering in that space? Who's to know? However, here's the key. Here's the key. You come forward and say, I would like to volunteer. How about we make some changes? How about we make things a little bit more user-friendly so that I can be part of the community, and then I can make a contribution towards the community. And so it's really interesting that I actually went to Launceston, Tasmania. And Launceston, Tasmania was built similar period to what Castlemaine was, 1860s, 1870s. In Launceston, Tasmania, they've adapted doorways in the side streets so that you cannot worry about the steps. And there's power chair recharge points, and there's a map you can get from the local people to tell you the gradients of the hills and the valleys and all the rest of it to get around the town of Launceston. And so that was created because there were people who wanted to be part of the community and got involved with making that happen.
And found their voice. Yeah, that's really interesting for us, and I reckon I'll take that as a bit of a call to action for our communities, and we're certainly doing work in our libraries to try and understand them through the eyes of all of our users with all their different abilities, and make sure that we're as accessible as we possibly can be. I've got one last question for you, Uncle. This is part of a series that we're producing for carers, and carers is a very broad definition. They're people who look after dependents, so children, but they're also particularly people who look after those with additional needs who can't perhaps live independently. So they might be children with different abilities, or they might be older adults or right through the lifespan with different abilities, or they might be aging, older adults in people's lives. So what we wanted to do with this project was to really acknowledge and celebrate the incredible invisible work and love that carers give to people, often behind closed doors and often without a lot of extra support. I wonder if you had a message that you would like to pass on to them today.
Sure. The thing that comes to mind straight away is carers need caring too.
Yeah.
And so you're absolutely onto it as far as the energy, the unselfish attitude that people give to those who require that level of support. And so it's really an important layer within the community that maybe it would be good to have like a roster system or a database of people who are in this situation or this circumstance, and then have a roster system where people would give carers a spell, and that the carers have time off for themselves to recharge or do whatever it is that they require. Because, seriously, it can be incredibly draining, energetically, it can be draining at many levels. But those people do that because that's what they're almost, you could say, called to do. However, carers need caring too.
Definitely, yeah. Yeah, what a perfect message to finish on. And whilst, structurally as libraries, we're not really in a position to offer an exchange care, we are certainly a place where stories can be shared and information can be shared. People can ask for help and resources, and we're also a nice, free, welcoming and inclusive space where people can go for their time out, and you don't have to pay any money to come and use a library and be warm or be cool, or find a nice cozy corner and something to read and a nice warm smile from our staff. So we'd love to encourage carers to follow Uncle Alan's advice and do care for yourselves, and we acknowledge you and celebrate your work and your love and your contribution to your families and your loved ones and those you care for, and our wider communities too. Uncle, did you have anything else you'd like to say before we finish up for today?
Oh, I guess there's only one last thing, and that is how wonderful and beautiful it is to be given the opportunity to share this space or this time with all who are listening in and part of this initiative with the library mob. And really, at the end of the day, it's about getting away from behind the closed doors and becoming involved with the community and not being ashamed of being who you are, and see that you can be accepted and you can be integrated into whatever it is within the community. But the first step is the most difficult, and that's from behind your front door. And so all I can suggest is anyone who would like to continue to look into that, take a big deep breath, open the front door and explore that amazing world that is out there, is actually waiting for you.
Oh, that's beautiful. What a perfect note to finish on. Thank you so much for your time and contribution to us today, into our local community, all the way from up there in Queensland. We're so grateful, and thank you also to everybody for joining us today and taking time out to have a listen to Uncle Alan's story and be inspired by a life well lived with different abilities. Thanks again, Uncle.
Okie dokie. Thank you.
Bye.
See you.